My name is Mohammed Darab, and in this video I'm going to show you how to set up a base machine from which you can deploy big data clusters, right? So in SQL Server 2019 they have this new awesome thing rather, called big data clusters. And if you're a DBA like myself who's been working with SQL Server for X number of years now, I'm always looking for ways to become relevant and stay updated, right? And big data clusters is it. So first thing you need to do before you get your hands dirty with big data clusters is set up this base machine, right? And right here I have a VM running. It's running Windows Server 2016. I've also done this on Windows 10 Professional on my Surface Book laptop. So you can do it on either machine or either OS, right? And you need certain utilities, certain tools. You need the whole environment set up. So this is going to walk you through that. And yeah, I'm super excited. I actually love this technology. I'm super excited about it. I'm creating this video to help you out. So if you're as passionate as I am with big data clusters, this will definitely help you out. So first things first, let's go ahead and download Azure Data Studio. Now, the funny thing is, when I go to places I do SQL Saturdays and user groups and things like that, and I talk about big data clusters, I like to ask the crowd, right? How many people have used Azure Data Studio? And very few hands go up. And I don't blame them because it's fairly new. It's not that new, but it's a couple years. But if you're just like a DBA like myself, you've been using SSMS, you really have no reason to dive into Azure Data Studio. And that's the way I felt last year. But I'll tell you this, with working with big data clusters and kind of expanding and thinking outside the box and learning, different technologies, Azure Data Studio, I absolutely love it. Like it is, and I'll tell you why as we go along in this video. So let's go ahead and download it first, but I want to make sure that you pick up that we're going to be downloading the release candidate version, which is right here, as you see here, the RC release candidate. So let's go ahead and install it. And mind you, it's only like 86 megabytes. That's nothing. And, the reason why it is 86 megs is because of the way they have developed it, right? Like if you think about SSMS, you have like all these different features, you have profile, you have this and that, all these different features and abilities built into SSMS. That's why it's like, what is that, 800 megs or 700 megs? But with Azure Data Studio, think of it as a stripped down SSMS, right? It's stripped down as a base skeleton, and whatever feature you need, you go ahead and download that extension package and install it and just use it. So what you don't need, you really don't have to install, and you just keep it lightweight. I actually absolutely love that. So, God knows how much of SSMS I don't know. What is this feature? What does it do? I've never used it, right? So imagine if I can just remove that and keep my, SSMS lightweight. That's what Azure Data Studio is like. So number one, we're going to need to install Azure Data Studio RC. So let's go ahead and kick that off. We just downloaded it. And accept agreement, whoever reads this. Okay, next, create desktop icon, next, and install. So while that's installing, we're going to go ahead and download the second thing, which is, again, as I mentioned, the extension. Now, there's an extension for Azure Data Studio Preview, and this allows you to look into big data clusters. So we need to also download that extension. This is a fairly easy, short file. We'll download this .vsix file. Click on that, download it. And you might be wondering, why the hell do I have Chrome on Windows? Why am I not using the wonderful Internet browser, Internet Explorer, right, IE? Because as you note here in this purple box, there is a known issue with Internet Explorer where the VSIX will be downloaded as zip files. I can't tell you how many times I tried to download the VSIX file and it downloaded as a zip file. And I'm wondering what the hell is going on, pulling my hair out, going nuts, realizing it's an IE problem. So I downloaded Chrome just for this. Yippee! So I have that installed. So now let's go ahead. This is Azure Data Studio. Let's launch it and hit finish. We'll go to minimize this. Okay, so this is Azure Data Studio. When you first kick it off, this is what it is. Let me bring it over here. and yes, and X, and cancel. Let me expand it a little bit right here. There. And we don't even need the welcome screen anymore, so we will uncheck that, hit X. So this is Azure Data Studio, very lightweight, 86 megs. Right now we're going to install that extension we downloaded. And how do you install an extension? File, install extension. Go to downloads, click on the extension file we just downloaded, install. And third-party extension might have security risks, who cares? Let's install it. And let that go ahead and run. That'll be done very quickly. Good. Now saying completed installing the extension. Great. Now, another beauty about Azure Data Studio is it's integrated with PowerShell, right? So I'll give you an example. I can go here, hit File. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I forget, we must install another extension. And actually, before we install that extension, if you see here, by clicking this little icon right here, the extensions, it'll pop out the extensions tab. Now, whatever I have enabled is here, and everything that's available is down here. All of these different third-party extensions. I want to also download and install PowerShell. That's just handy. It's not required, it's just handy. Because I can use just regular PowerShell, but I kind of want to do it all in one environment. So PowerShell, this little green button, get it installing, baby. Okay, so. And that should be done. So now we have PowerShell installed as well. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit File, Open File, and Desktop, and open this little PowerShell script that I put together. It's not complicated. I just put all the code that I'm going to be using in today's video here, so I have one source I can kind of go back and forth from. So, by the way, all links and files and everything that I mentioned here is in the show notes. So you don't have to worry, just go there, click it, and you'll see everything there for you. So I try to make it as easy as possible. So, number one, first install ADS, release candidate version, check. SQL Server 2019 preview extension, check. PowerShell extension, check, right? So we got that. Now we're going to install chocolaty. If you're wondering what the hell is chocolaty, then you were me about a year ago, okay? Because I don't know what the hell it was. But it's a package manager for Windows. So we're going to be downloading a couple utilities, a couple tools that are required to deploy a big data cluster. Instead of going to different multiple websites and downloading different files and doing all this stuff, we just used chocolaty to install everything. Makes it a lot easier. And I mean, hell of a easy. Hell of a easy. I'll tell you that. So, okay. Now, how do we install it though? We highlight this. We run this piece of code right here. Done. Hide that line and run that. Run selection. Done. So now we have chocolaty installed on this base machine. So we're chugging along here. Now what we need to do is install Kubernetes CLI and Azure CLI. Now one thing I want to clarify is Kubernetes CLI is mandatory, is required, right, to manage a big data cluster. Azure CLI is required if you plan on using the Azure stack, right? If you're dealing with Azure, then you need the Azure CLI. Now my next video is going to be actually deploying a big data cluster, right? So this video is getting that base machine set up. Next video is going to be deploying a big data cluster on AKS or Azure Kubernetes Service. So that's why I'm downloading Azure CLI. So it's a good thing to just have it installed. So when you're using chocolaty, the command to install a tool is choco or choco, however you want to say choco, install, then the tool name. So let's go ahead and right click, run selection. This is fairly quick. Bam, told you. Now, Choco install Azure CLI. Let's go ahead and install that. Choco or Choco? Run that. That'll take about a minute and a half. I'm going to go pause the video and resume it once it's done. Okay, so Azure CLI has been installed, so that's good. Now we're going to go ahead and go to number 4, which is installing Python. Now, again, I'm just a SQL DBA, right? I'm not a Python expert. I'm not a Python developer. I don't know much about programming languages per se, like Python. But you know, my interest and my passion for big data clusters has forced me to think outside the box, to start learning different concepts, different technologies. And I know enough to kind of get myself prepared to go down the path of big data clusters, right? So I implore you, don't give up. If it's something where you've been a DBA forever and all of a sudden you gotta, you know, what is Python, what is Kubernetes, what is containers, you know, take your time and learn it, because the payoff is huge. So that's my you know, suggestion to you. So again, for number 4, to install Python, we're gonna do Choco install Python. Then I'm gonna specify version 3.7.5, and I'll tell you in a minute why am I doing that. So we go ahead and run the selection. So if you're familiar with, at the time of this recording and this posting, the latest version of Python, or the current version of Python, is 3.8.0, right, or 0.0. Now, you can deploy Python via Azure Data Studio, which I'm not doing. I'm doing it via Choco, right, or Choco. And the version that ADS deploys is 3.6.6, which was released, I believe, June or July of 2018, right? So there's been multiple versions after that, right? I had some errors encountering, you know, certain notebook issues that I'll show you later. And so when I installed 3.8.0, had errors. When I installed 3.6.6, I got things like, you know, oh, this package needs updated, this package needs updated. So many different errors. So I went through each version iteration and I downloaded that, installed it, and see if that worked. And 3.7.5 seems to be fine. So again, this can all change by the time you watch this, especially if it's, you know, in the future, right? Or a lot further than, you know, today. So just keep that in mind, because it really kind of bugged me. And I have, again, if you have issues or questions, whatever, leave in the comments or reach out to me and I'll help you troubleshoot and answer any questions that, you know, you might have. But just know that. So we installed that. Now we have to reboot the server, because chocolaty puts the path, the Python path, in the environment variables, but you have to reboot the server to pick that up. So let me go ahead and pause the video. I'll reboot and then I'll resume. The server back up, and we have Azure Data Studio up. I got the file back up here. And so we did reboot the server. We did that. Now we're going to install. Actually, let me just. You want to verify, make sure that the Python path is in environment variables. It actually picks it up. So what we can do real quick is go down here to the PowerShell is clear. We do command.exe and then just do where Python, and you should see the path right here, right? And this path right here is, if you bring up the File Explorer, this path. That's where Python installs the file. So that's good. That's thumbs up. Now we can go ahead and exit, and then we're gonna install. We're gonna do number 5 right here, which is the dependency. So we click on this little gear on the lower left hand corner, hit Command Palette, and type in Python. And then you see configure Python for notebooks. Hit return, and it pops up this window. So this is, like I mentioned, where when ADS installs Python, this is that window. So if I was to choose new Python installation, it'll actually download and install 3.6.6, which is just a little bit too old, right? So and if you do use current, it should choose the version that we install. So we're not going to do the new Python installation, because we already just rebooted the server. We just installed Python. We're going to use the existing Python installation, and then we're going to deploy dependencies on there, right, that are related to the notebook, to this Azure Data Studio notebook, right, that we're about to use. So we just choose existing, and then we hit install, and just let that run. I'll go ahead and pause the video, and I'll resume once it's done. It takes about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. Don't want to bore y'all. So that installed all the dependencies on there, and it says notebook dependencies installation is complete. Cool. We do get a little warning here that says upgrade your pip, which is like a I think it used to install certain packages, a Python package. So let's go ahead and cut and paste that, put it in there, and hit return. It'll go ahead and download and upgrade that to the latest version. Okay, good. Now we're going to go to number 6, right, which is AZ Data. AZ Data is another one of those tools that you must have as a requirement. That's, again, programmed in Python, and hence the reason why we had to download it now and not before installing Python. So it'll install AZ Data, and with AZ Data, you can deploy big data cluster, create it, manage it. There's certain things you can do with AZ Data command and different subcommands that allow you to really dive into the big data clusters. I'm going to be creating different videos to go into those commands, but for this, again, we're just setting up the base machine. So let's get that installed. This is fairly quick. I think after this download, it should be pretty much done. Then like three days later. You can ignore that. That error still works fine. And done. There we go. Good. So that's done. Now, and this is, I don't want to say it's a bug, but it's something that I encountered that this is the only way I see it being fixed, quote unquote fixed. We go down to number 7, which means reinstall the dependency. So exactly what we did a step prior, we have to do that again. So like we do it once, we install AZ Data, right? And then we have to run the dependencies again. And it seems to fix the notebook being able to work. And I tell you what I mean. It's kind of like a Tarantino movie, right? I give you the ending, and I'm like, don't worry, I'll tell you about it. And then I start getting to the beginning at the end, right? So let's go ahead and do that real quick. We go to the gear command, and you just click on recently used, configure Python for notebooks, and then use existing Python installation. The same thing. We're going to use that. We're going to deploy on top of that any missing files. Again, I'm not a Python expert, but this helped me. So hit install. And again, I'll go ahead and pause and then resume once it's done. Okay, so it's done. Now let's go ahead and I'll show you what I mean by notebook, right? So we reinstalled that. We go to the upper left-hand corner, the connections. Actually, we can close this out. Go to the connections icon, click it. Pops open a connections tab. We'll click the more actions and then deploy SQL Server big data clusters. Leave everything as is, hit select. And this pops up a deployment target. Type in your password. Now this, don't worry about what, this is going to be more explained in my next video about actually deploying the big data cluster on AKS. But before, just to give you a little tidbit, this will create all the vital information or parameters you need to deploy big data cluster. So we just put in our password and then hit open notebook. And then we can actually click on the connections tab to move that out the way. Now we have this notebook called Deploy BDC AKS. This is built into Azure Data Studio, this notebook right here. And if you're wondering, what the hell is a notebook? A notebook is a technology based off of Jupyter. You can look it up. And it allows you to integrate, let me actually even also move away the command. So this is the actual notebook. It allows you to integrate code and text, right? Working on one file, right? It's kind of like an animated file, so to speak, or like a markup language, where you can deploy code and then the result of that pops up in the same file, right? So you don't have to have a different window, a different this or that, whatever. Everything is in one notebook. So now this is that. Now, how do I know that my installation of Python was successful, right? And this base machine works now, is the fact that in kernel, I see Python 3 and attached to localhost. Now, if you are doing this and you're like following along or you're doing this, on a different day or whatever, and you see on these two drop downs it says loading and it just sits there, there's something that you missed or you didn't configure correctly or something. And it couldn't not necessarily be, you know, something that you missed. It might be a bug or something. So if there is an issue or you have any type of questions or concerns, just leave a comment or reach out to me and I'll help you troubleshoot and we get it working for you. So, excuse me. So that says Python 3, so that's a big thumbs up. Now what we're going to do is, I mean, we're pretty much done. The base machine right now is done. But just to give you that extra confirmation, to make sure that the utilities that we installed, AZ Data, Kubernetes, Azure CLI, they're all working correctly. We're going to check the dependencies, which again, to go back to my explanation of what a notebook is, here's your little like markup, and then this is the code that we're going to run, all in the same file. So we hit this little play button or run cell, and what this will do is go ahead and check the versions of AZ or Azure CLI, Kubernetes, and also AZ Data. So it comes back and says successfully executed, which is good. And yeah, I mean, that's it right there. This video is done. You have your base machine. If you get to this point, you're ready to knock it off on the next video. You're ready to go. So I'm super excited about this technology if you haven't figured it out already. I'm going to be posting more videos on big data clusters, different aspects of it, different points, you know, on my YouTube page. I'm going to be dedicating it to pretty much big data clusters. So again, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was of some benefit. Hope to see you in the next video. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Again, my name is Mohammed Darab, and thanks for watching. Take care.